Welcome back to Imagine Spotlights. We're here on behalf of the ADA and Beyond Type 1 Collab to wrap up this amazing interview series. And when I tell you that we saved the best for last, I'm telling you the truth. All summer long throughout Imagine Camp, we've been chatting with awesome and inspiring people living with diabetes. We've heard from so many individuals who've shared their perspectives and experiences with you and helped show all of us what it means to live beyond our diagnoses. We talked about just how important it is to get connected and find community with others affected by diabetes, which is, of course, why we're all here and why all you campers are here watching. So I'm so excited that we get to keep doing that. My name is Rob Howe. I'm the creator of Diabetics Doing Things, and I've lived with type 1 for almost 17 years. And as usual, I'm the host with the most insulin on board. Today, I'm really excited because we're chatting with my friend Kendall Simmons, who is back with us at Imagine Camp for the second year. Kendall is a retired NFL player who was the first-round draft pick in 2002, and you were diagnosed with diabetes not long after joining the NFL. So we're excited to learn more about your journey, hear about what you've been up to lately, and I'll let you introduce yourself. Kendall, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I got you by 1 year, Rob. I'm going on 18 years now myself, living with type 1. Actually, I was diagnosed with LADA. You campers that don't know what that is, that's latent autoimmune diabetes of the adult. Or just to make it basic for you, they call it type 1.5. So I lived with that for 7 years. And when I retired from the NFL, my pancreas decided to go to Jamaica and not ever come back. And so I've been living with type 1 really for a little over 10 years now. And I tell you what, it's been a journey. But I'm a father of 4. I got 3 girls. My little boy will actually be 9 tomorrow. And I just came in and telling Rob I was sweating at a baseball camp with him, trying to get in here and make sure I get on with you guys. So I've been married to my wife for almost 20 years now, living in Auburn, Alabama, and I'm trying to get into coaching. So that's where I'm at.
You know, I'm so glad you're here to share your journey, and not only your journey as a professional athlete, but like you said, you're in the next journey of your life now, and diabetes is going along with you to that journey as well. And
Yes.
I remember from our last year interview, you talked a little bit about getting a letter from a young man while you were playing football. And I want to start off our interview there because that's sort of what hooked you into the world of diabetes community and diabetes advocacy. And, you know, that's what we're here about at camp. It's about connecting with people with diabetes. So can you tell our campers this year who may not have heard you last year, you know, what was that letter from that young man? What did that say?
The letter from the young man basically said, Mr. Simmons, I'm a type 1 diabetic myself. I was just recently diagnosed. I played offensive line in the NFL. And so he was like, I played the same position as you. We were at the same number 73. And you really inspired me and showed me that I can do anything living with diabetes because you've kept going after your dreams. You didn't let it defeat you and stop you from doing what you want to do. And with that letter, it really hit me at the time that I have people that are watching me constantly. And you don't really realize that until you do something that can negatively or positively change their lives. And at that point, for me, it was a positive influence on that young man. And it helped me because at that point in time, I was still struggling with the whole diagnosis. Just like a lot of you campers, I'm pretty sure if you're not thinking it now, it's crossed your mind. You wish you didn't have type 1. You didn't wish you had diabetes or anything that affect your life. But it is what it is. It's kind of part of it. And so that helped me see that, all right, I can do this. If this young man is doing it and I'm inspiring him, then let's see where we can go with this.
100% agree. And you talked about diagnosis, and, you know, most of us here at Imagine Camp remember our diagnosis at some point, you know, losing weight, going to the bathroom a lot, and, you know, kind of going through all of those different feelings and feeling tired. What do you remember about your diagnosis? Because you were already in the NFL when you were diagnosed with diabetes.
Okay, what I remember the most about my diagnosis, it was about really just a little bit before this time of the year. Really about this time of the year, getting ready to go to training camp. I had started working out twice a day because we were still doing 2-a-days and getting my body acclimated to the heat. I lost 13 pounds in one day. And then the next day, it was 10 pounds. Then maybe 2 or 3 got some of it back. And then all of a sudden it got to the point where I was going to the restroom. It seemed like every 5 minutes I was going to the bathroom. And it's funny because my wife was standing by the door and she's like, "Are you going in there again?" And I'm like, I don't know what's wrong. I gotta go. And the fatigue didn't kick in till like towards about a week or so before I got ready to go to Pittsburgh. I figured I've worked too hard. It's hot outside. I need to rest or whatever. So being young, being hard headed, probably should have went and got checked before that, before I hit the road. But I drove about 13, 14 hours easily with my blood sugar over 500. Didn't know what was going on, drinking constantly. I drank a whole case of those 20 ounce water, like the Dasani waters, throwing the bottles in the back seat of the car, stopping to use the bathroom. And then I'm grabbing Gatorade and everything else. What I didn't realize was I'm running my blood sugar up higher and higher because I'm trying to quench my thirst. And at that point, I got to the head trainer and told John Noakes, I don't feel good. He sent me to the head team doctor. He said, "Okay, let's test your blood sugar." I said, "What are you talking about blood sugar?" I'll show you. Just let's take a little blood test. He came back in and said, "We need to get you to the hospital right now." And I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" I hadn't even unpacked my car yet. Why do I need to go to the hospital? And from that point on, Rob, it's kind of a fog. I completely lost my vision. And I explained it to people. It's like walking into a dark bedroom and you can't see, and you got to stand there for like 2, 3 minutes for your eyes adjust. But it was like that. I couldn't see anything. And that was what freaked me out. Why am I blind all of a sudden? And they're telling me, saying I have diabetes. I'm like, what is that? It's like foreign to me. And that's when it scared me. And my wife immediately drove up, and she was probably about that far from my face and I couldn't see her. And I was like, okay, I'm in trouble. And after that, it's where I am today. It's just been a quick roller coaster ride, man. It really has been.
Well, and I think that, when you get out of that initial shock of diagnosis, you start, putting one foot in front of the other and starting to gain a little momentum and get back to things. One thing that while you were telling that story, it reminded me of when I was diagnosed, because I was drinking so much water. I felt like my coaches were going to be really proud of me because I was just putting down water. And I was like, "Hey, I was hydrated, coach. Like, I'm ready to go." And then, come to find out, it was my body trying to flush out all those ketones from that high blood sugar. And yeah, it's funny. You look back and at times before you had diabetes, when you're trying to drink Gatorade to get hydrated, and all you're really doing when you have diabetes is driving that blood sugar up.
Yes. And that's the whole word ketones, what you just said. What is that? I heard that too, and I didn't have a clue what was going on. And so after 2.5 weeks, I was down about 45 pounds in 2.5 weeks. I mean, that quick.
And after you were able to get to the hospital and get diagnosed and get, insulin and get, rehydrated, what do you remember about like approaching the season after that? Because like you said, you were going to training camp shortly after the season would start. What do you remember about the first game you played in after being diagnosed? What was that like?
I was terrified. I really was, because I knew I wasn't myself. It's not just being a professional athlete. I think any person, when you feel and you're at your best, and you go into a situation needing your best and you don't have it, it's really scary. No matter whether it's a test, campers, no matter whether it's, anything, whatever you want to put your best to, and you don't have it, it makes you apprehensive. You do things and it kind of makes you scared, and you lock up. Being a professional athlete, you don't have time to be scared. You don't have time to lock up. You got to be able to be loose and go. And it took me a long time. The hardest part for me was being taken in and out of the starting lineup because I wasn't playing well enough. And that's where the media kicks in. They start talking about, what's wrong with this kid? He's not playing well. He's not doing all these certain things. So that was really hard for me.
Well, because then you start to doubt yourself, right? You have that doubt creeps in, and I think all of our campers have probably felt that way at some point. And I think it's important for people like you who are at the highest level, and we, are celebrating as heroes with diabetes, that you go through that as well. Were you able to talk to anybody about that at the time? And, how did you, come to, get more confident and get more prepared and feel like you were ready to be your best self when the lights came on?
That's a very good question you asked. I had been asked that before. No, I didn't. I didn't have at that point in time anybody to talk about how I was feeling emotionally, um, and had to try to figure out a way or another to deal with that. And it was hard. Then you find yourself kind of lashing out at people, and it's more or less because you got stuff built up that you don't know how to get out. That's why I try to tell all young people, campers, you're listening to me, watching this. Do not keep what you're living with to yourself. You can't do it by yourself. You have got to have help. You got to talk to people. Even at 18 years and 42 years old, I still need to be able to voice it and talk about what I'm going through because I'm no different than you guys. There's still days where I don't want it. I wish I could give it away, but I wouldn't put it on anybody else because it's a struggle to deal with. So you do got to be able to do that.
You do, and I think that that's the importance of community, and that's one of the most impactful things that I see about going to camp is being able to share something in common with people who are so different than you otherwise, and we get to come from our different parts of our lives and our different experiences and bond over this thing that connects us all, which is diabetes. Which, like you said earlier, is a negative, but you can turn it into a positive with the right people around you in the right community.
Yep, that's definitely true. I think of it like this. It's funny. My wife just walked through and she made me think of this. I'm glad you brought this up. She loves New York because nobody there knows who she is. And she can just kind of be free and be herself or whatever. To me, look at camp the same way. Um, you go in, be yourself, tell your story, get it all out of your system. And that way you can kind of leave with a lot of weight off your shoulders. Now, it might change when you get home, but hopefully it'll teach you when you're there long enough to be able to talk to people and open up about what you're living with, because that's the best way to help you live with.
It is, and I think we all have support systems that look a little bit different. And for you being diagnosed as an adult, being in the NFL, being a professional athlete, what was it like sharing your diabetes with your wife and kind of opening yourself up to that and this new life that you both were sharing together?
Um, it was a challenge at times because I was still trying to figure out how to voice it at that time myself. I was 23 years old, um, trying to still figure out who I was. And now you throw this whole diagnosis of living with diabetes on top of it, and I don't even know what that is at the time. So it was really, honestly, kind of hard to voice it. We both were learning at the same time.
And for campers today who may have dreams of being a pro athlete or may have dreams of starting a business or being a model or going and being on under the bright lights somewhere, um, from the outside looking in, being in the NFL is a dream job, but we don't always see behind the scenes the sacrifices that people have to make when the camera is off. What was the biggest kind of surprise or adjustment that you had to make, at the professional level when after your diagnosis, you started to settle in and get everything together? What should campers know about all the work that goes in behind the scenes?
It's the constant tweaking of your physical and mental game. You're constantly tweaking things all the time. And that's with everyday life. Campers, whatever you're going through and you're dealing with, living with diabetes can be tough, but it helps you try to be as prepared as you possibly can. And if you can kind of implement the same rules to your life, it'll help you. Every practice was different for me. I never felt the same. Numbers weren't the same. I'd be perfect one day, and knowing I did not eat anything I was supposed to, I didn't splurge on king size Snickers, which is my absolute favorite.
Man,
you know,
that's so good.
and I'm telling myself, okay, let's see if we can have the same day we had yesterday because my numbers were good and everything. But the entire day, the next day, I'm at 300 and hadn't done anything wrong. Don't know why. It's probably stress or just being tired or whatever it may be. Those are the challenges and things that you can't let it blow you off the rails. You make small adjustments. You talk to the people around you to help you make the adjustments. And that, to me, I think that's the most important thing.
And speaking of those adjustments, how did you prepare for a game? And do you remember if diabetes ever impacted a game, or can you walk us through kind of a scenario of how you prepared to take the field in the NFL?
Yes. Try not to make it too long, but because there's a lot to it when I talk about the tweaking. And it took me a minute to kind of figure this out. I don't like playing with a lot of food on my stomach. So we had a lot of little protein bars and fruit and stuff like that. So that's what I would nibble on. I'd eat a good breakfast in the morning. Then after that, it would be a lot of, okay, eat an apple here, eat maybe part of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich here, eat a protein bar, check my blood sugar. All right, give it about 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, check it again. From the time I got up that morning till the game was over with, I'd probably check my blood sugar at least 10 to 15 times, at least, and probably take at least 10 shots, if not more, depending on what my numbers are. Supplements. I know I'm speaking to going to hopefully have some athletes watching this. The older you get, supplements are good for you. It helps. And it's going to affect your blood sugar. You're going to have some that will say no carbs in it. You think it's great, but it's going to have maybe some little supplement or stimulant in there. It's going to kick your blood sugar up. The biggest culprit for me, which is going to be for a lot of you guys, is adrenaline. We all need adrenaline to perform well. It gets us going. The bigger the game, the more hyped up you get. As a diabetic, most of the ones I know, it kicks their blood sugars up. I've only met a few where they actually bottom out. So they combating it differently. So you have to play that into factor, and you have to be on top of it. I would say for me, most people don't like being below 70. That's scary for them. For me, that was perfect. I needed to be about 70, 65 to 70 going into a game, because by the time the first quarter was over with, I'm close to 250 to 300. And so I needed that low range to give myself time to go up. The one thing that my doctor told me, and I stick with this till this day, he said to me, Kendall, for you to be able to play at your best, you got to keep your blood sugar below 180. It's just like in a car. Once you get red line, the engine of the car starts to sputter. Once it gets over 180, your engine starts to give out. It doesn't have as much juice and power and torque as you need it to. And so that was always like my ideal thing, is to try to stay as close to 180, really below 180, as close to it as I could, because I knew that's the only way I could get the best at least close to the best I had.
And what was that adjustment like for you, going to the sideline and testing your blood sugar and working with the trainers, and, did you ever have a teammate that could kind of tell when your blood sugar was off, or, say, hey, you better go take yourself out or check yourself out?
Yeah, I had a couple teammates. One of the biggest ones was Aaron Smith. He was one of my favorites. That he could always look at me and tell, because we went against each other all the time. But then also, as an offensive lineman, it's a group of us, and it's like a family. So we're around each other all the time. And it got to the point where they knew if I wasn't kind of laughing and poking or talking, that deer in the headlights look, they knew something was wrong. And they say, hey man, they called a trainer over for me. And they do whatever they had to do. I would say the majority of the time they saw me like this, with a trainer squeezing both forearms and trying to check my blood sugar. So think about this. You got a big 320-pound offensive lineman, sweating dirty, got grass and sand all over you, got to clean all your arm off. And while your coach is trying to make adjustments for the defense on the field, and you holding your arm up and they're trying to get blood on a test strip. That was a constant for me, because I had gloves on and tape, so I couldn't prick my fingers. You have to do whatever little adjustments you need to take care of yourself.
Yeah, I think we all know, especially at camp, sometimes our hands are just real dirty. We got to find different places to test, and
Yes.
the stress of the game and lots of sweat probably lost a lot of test strips that didn't quite get enough of the blood on them.
That's definitely true. You saw some few errors. I had one lady that I had a talk with, and she said, "Have you ever thought about using your earlobes?" And I was like, you know what? I didn't. And I wish she probably would have told me that, but I think that probably would have stung after doing that 4 or 5 times on the earlobe. I wouldn't have liked that too much.
Yeah, you might have ended up having to wear an earring or something after
Yeah,
too many of them.
exactly.
So, now you're a retired athlete. You're into the next journey of your career, and you're a coach at Auburn. And as you look back at your journey and you're working with young athletes, what was your biggest takeaway from your career that you're putting into the next generation of athletes that you're working with?
I'm really just trying to speak to them on a personal level about making the right choices. The one thing that I try to pay attention to is the choices that I made, and the individual ones. You think they're small and it's not such a big deal, but it's going to affect your life down the road. I just had this talk with my youngest daughter earlier. It's just like, baby, you got to pay attention to the choices that you make. Your dad has made a whole lot of bad choices, and some of them that I'm still having to deal with and live with today. That one you think, okay, is a small one, leads to bigger ones, because you think, okay, well, I got away with that. That didn't really affect me. So, all right, I can take it a little bit further. That's what I try to talk to the young guys about, because I didn't have anybody doing that for me when I was coming up and there was their age. I wish I would have. And the ones that I can remember that were trying to do it, I wish I would have listened to them earlier on. I think it would have helped me. So just overall, these young guys, how to manage their money, understanding what they're getting themselves into. Go to class. Make sure you get your education, because that's something that can't nobody ever take away from you. Only 1%, maybe less than 1% of guys actually make it to the NFL and stick. And actually, the word is stick. You might get a chance to go to camp, but if you don't make it for 3 years and 3 games, you didn't stick. You know what I'm saying? You okay, but when I say stick, that means 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years or more. That's when you know you locked in, you making an impact that could help you and hopefully a generation or two of your family. But some guys, if not, have your education, knowing that you're gonna go get a job, be okay with it, and go from there. And they got to make adjustments too. So I normally have 1 or 2 guys that'll actually listen to me and come back and be like, Coach, I appreciate you telling me that.
I remember being, I always think like hindsight's 2020, right? You go back and he's like, if I had gotten the good advice that these young men are getting, maybe I would have done good. And then I remember what I was like when I was 21 years old. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to get out of the way of that ego.
No. Hey, let me tell you something, man. You brought that up, and it's perfect. Me and you talked the other day, and I honestly, I'm a faith guy. I feel like things happen for a reason, and God's trying to get your attention. And it's just like those little bitty things that you think you kind of getting away with, and it's not a big deal. He notices those. And I'm gonna put something and try to tell you, hey, that wasn't good. That wasn't good. All right, you're not listening to me. Here comes a bigger issue. Until all of a sudden you feel like the walls are falling in around you. But if you think about it, you look back and it's that one little decision, small one, that's had led up to this big one. And so, I mean, to me, that's a big deal to me. And I don't know. I just hope kids will pay attention to that. I'm gonna say this, and I don't mean to get long-winded. I hear a lot about campers not testing their blood sugar, worrying about the in crowd, their peers, because they feel like their peers don't have any issues. Your peers got more issues than you would ever even know about. And I think a part of it is if we would open up and talk to each other and make ourselves vulnerable and not worry about what everybody else say, we would all be better off. And I'm talking to myself when I say this. Still, I struggle with it at times too. So young people, don't be afraid to show people your pump. Okay, I got my pump on right now. All right, CGM, all that stuff. There you go. He got his stuff on.
I got mine on too.
It's part of your life. It's part of who you are. And that don't make you no different or no better or no less than anybody else. Be okay with it. Once you become okay with it, what doesn't matter what everybody else thinks. There's no such thing as normal. None of us are normal. We never will be. Once you get comfortable in your skin, then you'll be all right. And I'm still learning it. So don't think I don't have it licked either. So I'm still getting it.
Yeah, I'm still working at it too. And with you talking about those things, it reminded me, comparison and looking to the left and the right and comparing your life or your blood sugar to somebody else. That is the thief of joy. It'll take that joy right away from you.
Yes, sir.
I know, we celebrate you as an athlete and an achiever and an inspirational person, but I know you deal with diabetes the same way as the rest of us, right? Some days you have your low moments.
Yes.
Do you ever face those moments of burnout and low moments? And if so, what do you do and how do you work your way through them? And what would you, how do you cope in those moments?
I just pray about it. I mean, there's no magical formula for it to. It's funny you brought that up. I went for a run the other day. Yes, actually, it was yesterday. Went for a run. I left and my blood sugar was at 116. I said, okay, I'm good. I turned my pump halfway down And about 30, 45 minutes into it, my CGM starts to beep. And I'm like, what is this? I'm at like 50. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. When I tell you I struggled to make it back to my work, it freaked me out and it scared me because I think I'm gonna have to call somebody here in a minute because my legs were getting weak and I felt it and I didn't have any glucose tabs on me. So I thought I was fine. I figured my blood sugar will climb a little bit while I'm running, which would be good, but it actually went the other way. And I started getting a little bit angry about it. And I got upset. And I'm like, this sucks. I just wanted to enjoy myself. I just wanted to get out in the sun and get a little run. And then this happens. It kind of screwed me up. And I had to tell myself, you know what? It could have been worse. It really could have been. You got back to your work, you got some stuff in you, you were fine. You need to be a little bit more prepared. You know, I've kind of pointed the finger at myself. I left and I wasn't prepared. I should have had some glucose tabs or something on me. And it's like it happens. Don't get upset about it. Don't be mad at the world because you could have still been laying out there on the ground and nobody never would have known. So I'm gonna take the step next time to be more prepared and make sure I got stuff with me. So hopefully I won't be in that situation.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, and I learned from camp and going and visiting a camp as an adult that diabetes makes me better at failure. Because
Yes.
I fail a lot. I fail pretty often, and but it doesn't defeat me, And like you said, you still made it back to your glucose tabs. You were
Mm-hmm.
able to rebound from the low moment that you had, and got a little bit upset at yourself, but you're able to move forward because that failure wasn't final.
Mm-hmm.
And next time you'll be more prepared and
Yes.
use that as a learning experience. So yeah, I think diabetes makes me better at failure, makes me more comfortable getting out of my comfort zone because I know on a day-to-day basis, I'm not guaranteed that what worked yesterday is not guaranteed to work today.
Yes. Yes. And that's the most frustrating part about living with this disease. But then I keep saying it, that's life. You
Yep.
never have a day that's the same. If you think you're going to do that, then you're fooling yourself. Just got to be on your toes, and diabetes prepares you for that. And I'm really honestly, people, I've gotten this question before. Um, wouldn't you want to be cured from diabetes? Yes, I would, but also I would be losing a very big part of myself that has made me who I am, that has taught me a lot of lessons, that has put me in touch with so many great people, being able to talk to you guys, campers, Rob, Tiana, everybody in the background. I would have never had those experiences if it wasn't for me living with this disease. So a huge part of me would be really sad if I lost it. You know what I mean? If you really think about it, I've had some good moments, very good moments with this. I had some bad ones, but I mean, I wouldn't know what to do differently if I didn't have it. So
Yeah, I try to flip it on its head sometimes, and if somebody was to offer me to take it from me, I would take that offer all day. I'd let them have it,
mm-hmm.
but I would also, I'm grateful for the purpose that it's given my life that
Exactly.
otherwise I wouldn't have known. I think all of our campers probably and you and everybody on the call would resonate with. There was a point in our lives where we didn't know anything about diabetes,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of people in the world who live that day to day, and it doesn't affect their lives.
Yeah.
And because it has affected our lives pretty dramatically, we've been opened up to this whole side of the world of people who deal with these difficult diseases and handle them with grace and power and strength. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where I get inspired. It's not just amazing world class athletes like yourself, but also kids at camp talking to each other before they eat about what their blood sugar is and normalizing giving injections and still being regular kids, like you said, normal kids,
Mm-hmm.
at the same time. And that's what keeps me going in my low moments as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's very important just to do the best you can with it.
Huh.
Open up and communicate is very key. I really do think that.
Well, I can't let you go off this interview without asking you. I got two questions about your pro career because I gotta know what it was like. So 2002 NFL draft, first round, your name gets read by the commissioner. What was that like? What was going through your head? How'd you feel?
For one, are you serious right now? Because what I was being told would be mid to early second round. you know, and I was fine with that. I said, look, as long as somebody pick me and give me an opportunity, I'm not going to be upset. I'm going to go and give it everything I got because I honestly didn't think I'd even be in this situation anyway. So to have Kevin Colbert, the GM from the Pittsburgh Steelers, who's still there now, call me and say, hey, Coach Kyle, I want to talk to you. I'm like, what for? Why you want to talk to me right now? This is cool, but man, I ain't going in the first round. And he said, hey, we about to pick you in like 2 minutes. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And that was, I'm still in awe of it. I really am. Because I just didn't think I was at that level at all. I just wanted to play. And it was definitely a dream come true because I didn't realize how many Steelers fans was in my hometown, which is Ripley, Mississippi. And the funny thing about it is our uniforms look similar too, in black and gold. And I just didn't realize that. And it was just kind of crazy how everything fell into place. I had a lot of my friends, had pretty much all my teammates, a lot of my wife's friends, and a lot of people from my hometown there. It was a great day. It really was.
Well, and the next question I'm sure was another great day, but you know, we just watched it's summer 2021. We just watched the Milwaukee Bucks win the NBA championship. And so I thought, you know, I've got to ask, when you look up at the rafters and you see the confetti all around and you hear Super Bowl champions, which, you know, you got to experience very early and late in your career. What's that moment like, being able to look around and celebrate with your family and your teammates when you see all the confetti around?
At some point right now, I'm a part of the best team that's played the game. And that's something that they can't take away from you. You played and you contributed to helping the team win the world championship. And any and everybody and their mama who loves football has watched you do that. And it's really hard to explain. When I sit back and look at it, I watched my oldest daughter, who will be 17 in a month. She was barely 2 years old. And watching her run around with these big old Afro puffs on her head, with my little jersey on, 73, running around trying to catch the confetti and doing confetti angels on the ground, is mind blowing. It almost makes you, want to tear up thinking about it, because I'm like, man, I told my wife, I said, we're going to win this game. I feel it. And I'm going to come get you out of the stand when this game's over with. And as soon as it got 0-0, I mean, I knew what she was, and that's who I was looking for. And the crazy thing about it is, my daughter had never seen me in full uniform. And when I reached to get her, I'm like, hey, baby, come to daddy. She freaked out. She was like, started crying, like, who is this? Like, I don't know who this is. And I'm like, it's me, it's me, it's me. And so she finally calmed down when I got my wife out the stand. And just watching that and celebrating with my friends. We had guys on my team that were good friends. They had kids the same age, and watching our kids run around and, knowing that was Jerome Bettis' last game. He's in his home in Detroit, doing that. And Dick LeBeau got put into the Hall of Fame. He played with the Detroit Lions, still got their all-time interception, record. It was like the stars aligned perfectly. You couldn't have written it any better for that to work out the way it did.
It's incredible. And I'm sure there are some campers who are listening to these stories and hoping and praying and working that they can have that chance. What's the best advice that you could give some of our athletes or aspiring athletes or aspiring whatever, who are here at camp, living with diabetes, when it comes to playing, competitive sports as a person with diabetes? What advice would you give them?
Just like anything in life, living with diabetes, you're going to constantly have hurdles in front of you every day. Prepare and anticipate. Let me flip that around. Anticipate and be prepared for what's going to happen. Whatever happened to you the day before, don't put that in cement. You just take it for what it is, log it, keep hold of the key stuff. And all right, if you run into a situation tomorrow, you know that, all right, I had the same thing similar happen to me. Let me do that. And push yourself. Don't let diabetes rob you of your joy. Because a lot of people freak out and don't want to try things because they're afraid to go low. They don't want to do, I'm having too many lows. Okay, let's talk to somebody about that. Let's fix that, because you can still live your life like everybody else, as least close to possible, and go after it. Be willing to do things. One thing when you brought it up, I thought about, I do it all the time, and it's just unconsciously. I see a pump in a CGM from a mile away, and it's almost like I'm gravitating to it. I would go to that person, like, hey, I got one of those. I might scare him to be like, oh, why is he coming up and talking to me? But beforehand, I wouldn't have done that. And I strike up a conversation with them because maybe they need to talk about it. I can tell I kind of freak them out, but then once they get to talking to me, like, okay, yeah, cool. And I exchange numbers. Don't be so timid about showing people about what you live with. If you see somebody got a pump, go say, hey, I like your pump. You never know, that might be a lifelong lasting friend that could change your life or point you to something in the life that you have in a situation with to help you out. The more you talk about what you live with, the better off you be. Athletes or anybody, whatever field you want to specialize in, you got to let everybody know what's going on in that space so they know and can be prepared on how to help you, because you cannot do it by yourself. You need to talk to them. Well, I don't want to go into this job and let them know I have diabetes. Don't do that. If they hold that against you, God don't want you to have that job in the first place. You don't need to be there because it wasn't going to work out for you. You're in the wrong space. You need to be where you're going to be comfortable and be able to be who he made you to be. If you can't do that, then you're in the wrong space. Don't hide that from anybody else. And just keep praying about it. Whether you are big on it or not, it ain't no specific way to talk to them. Just have a conversation, just like the way I'm talking to you and I'm talking to Rob. Just talk. And you'll be amazed at how much better you'll feel at the end and how some little doors will start to open up for you because you are asking and you're making your fears and your wishes known to him. That's how I see it.
I couldn't agree more. And I think also, leading with and being upfront about your diabetes helps other people understand it a little bit better too.
Yes.
And when I was choosing where I was going to go to school, my parents and I sat down and we had a conversation about, hey, we're getting calls from these programs. How do we want to talk about diabetes? And we made a choice that I didn't know how important it would be at the time, but to be upfront about it and to say, hey, I live with diabetes. This is how it works. And I want to come and contribute to your program. And, but this is something that we're going to have to deal with together. And I think it was making that decision to consciously lead with that set me up for success. Even when I wasn't, doing my job really on the court, I knew I had a support system off the court with the training staff. So lead with it, be open with it. I think it's important.
That's true. And I'm gonna tell you, this is something that I learned because my wife worked in admissions for about 4 years, and now she works in College of Human Sciences. Campers, you going to college, especially if at that age, you make a decision to go to college. Make the admissions office, let them know that you have diabetes. There are so many things and benefits that you get because of the disease that you live with. Take full advantage of that. That's not, some people like you talk, Max, say, hey, well, you playing the system. No, you getting help. You letting them know, you letting the entire college know that you have a need. And there are things that can help set you up, throughout the time while you're there and make your life living with diabetes so much easier. I'm gonna say this too, connect with the College Diabetes Network if they got one. Christina Roth, I know her well, good friend, knows it well, has done a great job establishing that around the country. We have one here at Auburn, and it's a very good connect for you to really go in and be yourself. It's a good space to, or if you don't have a College Diabetes Network, look for some type of network, a diabetes institute that's near you. Anything you can do to help you feel comfortable about the space that you're living in.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. Tiana, who's in the background of this call, was part of College Diabetes Network at the university that I went to, but we didn't have it. We didn't have it when I was there, and they were able to get a chapter started. So if there's no chapter where you're going, you can start one there, and
there you go.
And leave a legacy like that. So really important stuff. Kendall, man, thank you so much for being here and taking your time to give back to the campers. Not 1 year, but 2 years in a row. We definitely are excited to have you back, and hopefully we'll be able to have camp in person going forward. Hopefully we'll be able to do that in a safe way in the future. So thank you so much again for being here today and for spending time with our campers.
I'm glad to be on it. We have one in person. don't forget about me. I want to be there because I want to see what it's like. I want to be a part of the campers and do everything that you guys got going on. Gianna, Ms. Jordan, Rob, y'all doing an awesome job. Campers, keep pushing yourself. You're going to be afraid of things. Things are going to happen. Don't let it stop you from living your life. And don't use diabetes as an excuse. Use it as a way to motivate yourself to push a little bit harder. You're a lot stronger mentally and physically than you give yourself credit for. I learned that. And I tell people all the time, it's taught me more mental toughness than anything I've ever dealt with in my entire life, because you got to constantly think about it all the time. And you can do it. You want some rope when you get home? Start taking care of yourself. Mom and daddy nagging you? Take some responsibility for what you're living with and show them that you can grow up, you can handle it. And I promise you, they'll back off. They're still going to worry about you because they're your parents. That's part of life. They're going to do you that way. My mom still treats me like I'm a 3-year-old right now.
Mine too. Mine too.
So it is what it is, but it'll prepare you. It really will. And you can handle it. You really can. And I'm pulling for you. If you ever need any help, reach out to me. I'll do the best I can to try to help you out.
Well, thank you, Kendall. And thank you all for tuning in and being here as a part of Imagine Camp. We hope you're enjoying it and have had a blast. I've had a blast here every week, interviewing amazing people with diabetes as part of the ADA and Beyond Type 1 collab. It's year 2 for me. I'm looking forward to year 3. Thank you guys so much for being here. And Kendall, thanks once again for being part of Imagine Camp.
I appreciate that. And also let them leave out ADA. Thank y'all too, as well as giving me the opportunity. I really appreciate it.